Welcome everybody. I'm Jim Knoll with the Tucson Amateur Astronomy Association, and today I'm going to give you a little overview of our library telescope. We're going to talk things about like how to set up the telescope, how to use the telescope, how to transport it, and things like that to make it a little bit easier for you to use it. One of the things that's helpful to have along when you're doing observing is a small flashlight with a red cover, either some red cellophane or if you have some red nail polish or paint that you can use. That helps to preserve your night vision when you're looking at the charts and things like that. So before you transport the telescope, one of the things you want to do is you want to make sure that the lid is secure and that the foam inserts are securely on the telescope. And this, when you close this, it'll kind of snap into place. And it is flat on the back side, so that if you're putting it into an SUV, you can actually tip it back on its side. It does have wheels to be able to move it. So the first thing we're going to do, and also up here is a lot of the checklist and some of the documentation. So make sure you review that and then try to make sure you put everything back in when you're done for the next person to use. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take the top off, and you'll see that the telescope has the bowl cover pointing up, and it may or may not be straight up. Sometimes you have to adjust it a little bit to fit it down. So the top part has wording back here to tell you that this is where the hinge or the flat side of the case should be, and that this is the top, and it should just slide right down in there and just get it down just far enough so it clears the top. So we'll take that out and put this off to the side. Now to take it out of here, you don't want to grab it by the bowl. You want to make sure you grab it by the handle, which is right over here. So you grab it by the handle and you can kind of support it with the base of the telescope, and you just pull it straight up and put it right there. Now you'll see when you look down in here, the base has the foam in the bottom, and there's a section that says eyepiece pointing towards the right front. So when I pulled it out, that eyepiece was right down in that section. So you want to make sure that the telescope's aligned properly. All right, so as I mentioned and showed you, inside the plastic cover and the lid is some of the reference material, and here's what's in there. So there's kind of just a little idea of what's in there with the checklist, an object finder, the moon map, and then the instructions. This is the checklist. So there's a checklist for checkout, and then on the back side is a checklist for when you check it back in. So that's good to review, just so that you can make sure you've got everything in there. Some pictures so you know how things go. The manual for the telescope, so there's lots of good information in here, and so it's good to just kind of flip through this. If you have a youngster and you want to record their first telescopic observation, you can go ahead and use this and keep this, and the library will check to see if they need to print out another one if you use it. Some observing tips. A nice to show some of the links for where you can get more information if you want to. The planisphere, and there's instructions, and we also have a video that shows you how to use a planisphere. And then here's a moon map that you can use to find different targets and identify what's on the moon. All right, so when you use this, it's ideal to set it on a table, a good sturdy table that's fairly level and accessible for the family to be able to get to the eyepiece. Sometimes it's easiest to maybe put it over towards the edge, just don't get it too close to the edge. And that way when you bring this up, you're able to get to the eyepiece right here with maybe a small step stool or something. So as you use this, first things you want to do is you want to remove the cover of the eyepiece and put it in the holder, and the holder is right over here. Put the eyepiece cover as well as the cover of the telescope. So you just take that off and put that right in there as well. Take a look down the tube just to make sure it's nice and clear, and be very careful when you're using this that none of the kids or the family members put anything down there, because that'll ruin the telescope. So you want to try to keep this covered up until you're using it, and then cover it up again as soon as you're done so that dust and nothing gets down in there. Once you've got this on, you're going to use this finder scope right here to find the objects in the night sky. There's an on-off switch that has a little dot right here, so you're going to want to turn it. You'll hear a click. You want to turn it so that it's pretty bright, about 2/3 of the way up, and that'll turn on the red dot finder. And that's what you're going to use in conjunction with the maps and other things to find stuff. I would recommend starting off with something like the moon. We actually have the moon up during the day right now. And so what you want to do is when you look in here, you want to look right up here, and during the daytime, one of the things you want to be careful of and make sure you don't do is you do not want to look at the sun with this telescope, because that will damage your eyes. It'll hurt your eyes big time. You can look at the moon during the daytime, but other than that, it should only be used at night. So you just kind of grab it gently and move it up and down like this and swivel it back and forth to find objects. What you do is you look right up here, and if you want to go around over there, look right up here and find the red dot, and then you want to get it right, put it right on. In this case, it's the moon. And once it's on the moon, you want to be careful not to move it. Now, the Earth rotates, and so the objects in the night sky are going to move. And so you're going to have to continually adjust the telescope to be able to keep objects in there. So you can use the red dot finder, or you can just look into the eyepiece and make sure that it's moved on. When family members are using this, try to make sure they don't inadvertently move it. Otherwise, you'll have to find the object again. So you want to try to minimize how you're touching it. So once you have it in there, come over here, you want to use these knobs right here to focus it. So again, you're going to look right in here until you find the object, and then make sure that it's good and focused for you. And then you try to keep it in the center as much as possible. Once you've got it focused, then you can let people look through it if you want to. Now, the other thing, this is equipped with a zoom eyepiece. So if you come over here and look right down here, you can see the numbers on the eyepiece, and it goes from 24 all the way to 8 millimeter. The smaller the number, the higher the magnification. And you just twist it with this where the rough part is, and it should twist pretty easy. You should always start on the lowest magnification, which is 24 millimeters, to find your object. Once you find your object, then you can make sure it's right in the center. And again, things are going to move since the Earth rotates, but once it's right in the center, then you can slowly look in there. You can slowly rotate it until you get the desired magnification, and then refocus it again. And so that would be one way so that's now on the moon, and you'd use the same process for any of the other objects in the night sky. This little telescope is great for looking at the planets, which are, a lot of them are visible. For instance, Venus you can see right after dusk or sometimes in the morning sky. Mercury is a little bit tougher because it's so close to the sun. Mars is always a player to be able to look at, obviously the moon. And then you can also look at Jupiter and Saturn. You'll see the rings of Saturn and maybe some of its moons, and certainly Jupiter, the cloud bands going around Jupiter, and 4 of its moons. So those are really fun things to look at. And on the piece of paper that had the web links for different information, you can look there to be able to get more information about what's up in the night sky.
Okay.
All right, so that's kind of the basic operation. One of the things that is on the list of websites that you can go to is something called Sky Maps. And that lists, you can print out a current star chart so you can see what's similar to what's in the planisphere, except it's made specifically for that month that you're in. And you can also take a look and see what's out tonight. And so that's kind of cool, because then you can see if there's anything that you might be able to want to look at. All right, so when you're done using it, again, you want to make sure you put it all to bed correctly. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to come over here and we're going to shut off our star finder so we can preserve the battery. So you just kind of turn it around until it clicks and the two white dots line up. We want to take out the cover and cover up the telescope again. Usually you can put it in so that the Orion word is right side up, and then just push it so it snaps down in there good. Sometimes it goes in a little bit hard. Just make sure it snaps in there good and that the wire is still on there. And then you want to make sure you replace the cover for the eyepiece like that. And then we'll turn the focus back down here. And I would go ahead and set this back to 24 for the next person. And then you simply rotate it down, make sure that the wire doesn't get hung up on anything. And this thing just, there we go. It snaps in kind of hard. Make sure it's snapped in good. Bring it down so that it's lined up like that. And then you're ready to put it back in the case. So to do that, we're going to come over here. We're going to, again, grab it by the handle and the base. So have it like this. You want to put it in so that the eyepiece is pointing in the right direction. Bring it down. You might have to rotate it a little bit before you set it down in there, just so that it's in the corner. And then make sure it's down there good, and you can see the eyepiece is pointing towards the eyepiece. And then we simply go ahead and grab the cover. And again, you want to put the flat side towards the hinge. All right, and then you might have to kind of move the telescope a little bit to line it up in the hole so that it goes in there nice and easy. So once you've got this on here, and again, sometimes it has to be angled a little bit, make sure everything's lined up right and down below the edge. And then you can close this back. Make sure you've returned everything back in here that needs to be returned, which is most everything. Bring it closed and then push down so it snaps like that, and make sure it's locked good. We have telescope written on all the sides and on the top, so you don't inadvertently use this as a trash can. And make sure that you just keep this closed when you're not doing an active observing session, and bring it inside so that it doesn't stay out in the sun or anything and get too hot. So that's the basic operation of the telescope. Again, there is a checklist in here of how to return it that the librarians will use, and so you can kind of go through that to make sure you got everything back in here that needs to be in here. And then you can just simply wheel it like this. And then when it comes time to put it into an SUV or something, you can just do it very carefully, but you can lay it over on its side like that inside, as long as you got the lid closed, and it should be fine. All right, so, and then, as you're using it, if you do have any issues with it, you want to make sure you mention it to the librarians when you return it, or if you have any issue, call the library to let them know about it right away. So that's kind of how to use and how to transport the library system. It's a great little telescope if you use it carefully, and it's a delicate instrument, so you want to make sure that it's treated with the right kind of respect. It's going to be a great opportunity for the kids to be able to look at some fascinating objects in the night sky. So have fun with it, and hopefully they'll get hooked on doing a little bit of astronomy. And then later on, if you want to get your own telescope, you'll have an idea using this of how it works. From the Tucson Amateur Astronomy Association, we also do in-person astronomy events, and so that's an opportunity. If you can check our calendar on the website, which is TucsonAstronomy.org, and see if there's any upcoming events, or watch some of our virtual events, because that'll give you some ideas of what you might be able to look at with this telescope. You're going to want to limit it to probably some of the brighter objects in the night sky, because it is a fairly small telescope to be able to use. So with that in mind, have a great time with it, enjoy it, and keep looking up in the night sky. Thank you.